Recently, my family has gone through some health concerns, and as a physician, I see matters of life and death every day. Difficult decisions to make, which involve family and other concerns that people have. And it reminds me of a parable in the book of Luke, chapter 8. And it's the parable of the storm that Jesus stilled. And I'd like to read that to you and just share a couple of thoughts. It says, "Now it happened on a certain day that he got into a boat with his disciples. And he said to them, 'Let us cross over to the other side of the lake.' And they launched out. But as they sailed, he fell asleep. And a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in jeopardy. And they came to him and awoke him, saying, 'Master, Master, we are perishing.' Then he arose and rebuked the wind and the raging of the water. And they ceased, and there was a calm. But he said to them, 'Where is your faith?' And they were afraid and marveled, saying one to the other, 'Who can this be?' In some translations, who is this man? For he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him." Just recently, with my own life experience, I think it's important for us to say to ourselves, it's not when challenging times will come. It's not when crisis moments come. It's not if crisis moment comes, it's when they come. And as we look at our increasingly, interconnected and complex world, I think that we all ask ourselves how to make sense of the winds that rage around us. But I think it's interesting to note in this parable that Jesus actually bids his disciples to cross to the other side, knowing some of the potential dangers. In fact, it's very interesting. If you travel to Galilee, and if you go out on a boat in Galilee, most of the time it's very tranquil. It's very peaceful. There's a certain, you can have an understanding of why Jesus wanted to spend most of his time there. But what the locals will tell you is there's actually a gulch, and you can see this out on the water. You can see where the mountain kind of comes together. And there are certain winds at certain times of the year that are funneled down this gulch onto the lake that will whip up a severe storm very quickly. So I think it's interesting that Jesus, knowing the potential dangers, bid his disciples come. Now what's interesting, there's a beautiful painting by Rembrandt, actually, of this scene. And on this painting, it depicts his interpretation of the situation. There are winds coming from every side. Now normally when we face winds, we go outside and we walk outside and the wind seems to be coming in our face or blowing in one particular direction. Only in the worst storms does it seem to be swirling. But this was different. This is not just wind just coming straight at the disciples. It was coming from all different directions. And I think that that's a very instructive point for our lives. What's interesting is that sometimes when we see these winds and we think that surely we're going to perish, what can we do? We can call out to the Lord and he can calm that storm. But what I think the most important thing that they probably learned after that situation was to trust in the Lord. And that has certainly been my experience lately. That's been the experience that I've had with my patients in the hospital and in my office, is talking about ways that we can trust the Lord. In a new way, learn to deny ourselves. So in this world where you hear of wars, rumors of wars, we see natural disasters, we see the decomposition of family life, we see the intrusion of theories that are made by men, we see really no bedrock that we can cling to. The question, I think, at the end of this parable is the most instructive. Who is this man? You know, in our lives, we see family members failing us. We see society failing us. We know that we struggle with certain things. But there is one man who always comes through, especially when we feel that we are perishing. So my encouragement to you, my prayer for you, is that when things seem in upheaval in your life, when you're searching for the most fundamental answers, when you're struggling with the bombardment of social media, of the internet, of just things that you're tempted with, and you see those winds coming from every single angle, that you would cling to the Lord, that you would say in a new way, who is this man? And that you would get to know him as the Lord that you can trust, that has the answer for all of your longings. And so he says, deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow him. If you're at that point, sort of a breaking point, where you find it hard to understand things, try approaching him, deny yourself, take up your cross, and he will follow you, and you can follow him, and he will never let you down. It's my prayer for you.